Have you ever caught your reflection in the hallway mirror just passing by and thought, wait, do I look tired? Or is that just me now? It's not always the face we don't recognize. Sometimes it's the colors around it. Over the years, I've seen how colors can either lift a woman's whole spirit or quietly dull her, without her even knowing. And here's the truth most of us weren't told. The shades that once felt vibrant, even flattering in our 40s, might now be doing us a quiet disservice. This isn't about trends. It's about ease, dignity, feeling like yourself again when you get dressed in the morning. I remember my friend Elise, she's 72 now, once told me she kept wearing pale pink because her late husband always loved it on her. But every time she wore it to her local library meetups, someone would ask if she was feeling under the weather. One afternoon, she switched to a rose-colored cardigan, just a richer, deeper version. That day, 3 women asked if she'd been on vacation. She hadn't changed her hair, just the tone. So let's gently walk through the 7 colors that might be quietly aging us, and the beautiful, grown-up alternatives that don't just match our skin tones now, but meet the women we've become. Let's start with one that's often seen as classic, but might actually be draining your glow: icy white.
1. Stark white, ivory, light that loves you back. You know that moment when you're folding laundry and you hold up one of your old white blouses, and for a second you wonder, was this always this sharp looking? It's not the wrinkles in the fabric. It's something about the color. It feels cold now. Like it doesn't know you anymore. That's the quiet betrayal of stark white after 60. Once elegant and crisp, now it can feel almost unforgiving. It clings to every fine line, deepens every shadow, and draws your skin tone into places it doesn't belong. But here's a truth I've learned not just from closets, but from faces across the years. Ivory gives back what bright white takes away. A soft pearl tone, warm cream, even a muted oatmeal, they carry light with a gentler hand. My friend Nadine, who lives in a tiny cedar-shingled house in Oregon, once told me she kept wearing her good white shirts to church because they felt appropriate. But she hated the way she looked in the bathroom mirror under fluorescent light. Like a ghost who hadn't slept, she said. One Sunday, she tried a soft ivory silk blouse instead. And she said the strangest thing happened. People stopped asking if she was tired, and one even asked if she'd had a facial. All she'd done was choose a white that loved her back. I made that change in my 60s too. I still have one crisp white blouse I keep for sentimental reasons, but I don't wear it near my face. Now, when I reach for something light, I reach for warmth. Because that's what this stage of life calls for. Kindness, not contrast. Sometimes it's not your skin that's changed. It's the color that stopped growing with you. Glow doesn't demand brightness. It asks for gentleness. Next, let's talk about a shade we were taught was always chic, but can actually steal the life from your eyes. Matte black. Have you ever compared your reflection in stark white versus ivory? What did you see? 2. Matte black, navy, the darkness that holds, not hides. Ever noticed how some colors make you disappear, even when you're standing in the mirror looking straight at yourself? It happened to me in my favorite old black turtleneck. I'd worn it for years, thinking it made me look put together. But one afternoon, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror after errands, and I didn't recognize the woman looking back. Not older, just faded, like the shirt had swallowed me whole. That's the tricky part about matte black after 60. It absorbs light instead of sharing it. It sharpens cheekbones in the wrong way, deepens under eye shadows, and makes our silver or white hair look stark, not soft. For decades, black was marketed to us as timeless, slimming, powerful, but now it can feel like armor that no longer fits. The solution isn't giving up depth, it's shifting to navy. Navy carries the weight and elegance of black, but with warmth. It softens. It listens to your skin tone instead of arguing with it. It holds you without erasing you. I remember one of my clients, Judith, 72, retired professor, had a closet full of black blazers. She wore them out of habit, convinced they were her professional signature. But when she wore a navy blazer to her grandson's piano recital, something shifted. Her daughter leaned in and said, "Mom, you look so well rested today." That comment stayed with her far longer than the recital, because sometimes what we're really dressing for is to feel seen again. I've traded most of my black for navy, charcoal, and deep espresso. Not because I don't like black anymore, but because at this point in life, I want to feel held, not hidden. There's a difference between feeling strong and feeling like you have to disappear to prove it. Next, let's take a closer look at a cheerful color many of us love, but that can quietly drain our glow without warning: pale yellow. Have you ever swapped out black for navy and noticed how your skin or eyes responded? 3. Pale yellow. Saffron, warmth you can wear. You ever put on something cheerful, like a soft yellow sweater, thinking it'll brighten your mood, only to look in the mirror and feel oddly faded? That's what happened to me one April morning. I was meeting friends for coffee at the farmer's market, wore my pale lemon cardigan, and yet something about my reflection just didn't look awake. It wasn't the coffee I needed. It was color with more life. Pale yellow can seem like a happy choice, but after 60, it often lacks the depth to support our skin's quieter glow. It blends in too much. Instead of lifting us, it flattens us. Especially for those of us with silver or white hair, the color just vanishes into us and takes a bit of our light with it. That's why I've fallen in love with saffron. Not the neon yellows of beach towels and caution signs, but the rich, earthy warmth that feels like sunlight right before dusk. It's a color that doesn't scream. It glows. It adds definition, radiance, and a sense of presence. Not flashy, just alive. I had a client, Bonnie, 64, watercolor artist, who wore butter yellow out of habit. She said it reminded her of spring and felt safe. But when I helped her try on a saffron tunic at a vintage resale shop near Asheville, she stood straighter. "This feels like I matter again," she whispered. Not just seen, but noticed with softness. I remember thinking, we deserve colors that don't just match our mood, but help shift it. Saffron does that. It says, you're not fading. You're still glowing, just in a quieter, richer way. Brightness isn't about loudness. It's about warmth that lingers. And if yellow's been quietly draining your light, the next color might surprise you even more. Let's talk about beige and how trading it for camel can bring your reflection back to life. When was the last time a color made your skin feel alive again? 4. Faded beige. Camel, invisible versus present. There's this moment, isn't there, right before you leave the house. You've got your bag, maybe your reading glasses, keys in hand. You pause by the hallway mirror, not for vanity, just to make sure everything's in place. And sometimes you catch a glimpse of yourself in that beige cardigan you've worn 100 times. And for a split second, you wonder, why do I look faded? I used to reach for beige out of habit. It felt safe, grown up. A color that didn't draw too much attention. But over time, I noticed something. On gray mornings, or under the soft light of my kitchen, beige didn't just blend into the background. I did. And I started to feel it, not just in how I looked, but in how I carried myself, like I was softening into invisibility. As we age, our skin tone changes, our hair turns silver or soft gray, and that gentle contrast we once had, the brightness in our coloring, becomes more subtle. Faded beige, as classic as it may seem, doesn't support that shift. It doesn't give us the light bounce, the warmth, the gentle structure our features now need. That's where camel comes in. Oh, camel. Warm, golden, rich. Still neutral, still elegant, but with a softness that holds you instead of hiding you. I remember walking into a small cafe in Vermont one fall wearing a camel wrap coat I hadn't touched in years. The barista, no older than 30, smiled and said, "That color looks amazing on you." And it wasn't the coat, really. It was how I felt in it, like I had returned to myself. Let me tell you about Doris. She's 72, lives in a small town in Minnesota. For years, she wore oatmeal sweaters and sandy knits because they didn't scream. But one day, at a thrift shop fundraiser, she tried on a camel wool blazer, structured but soft. She looked in the mirror and whispered, "I didn't realize how invisible I felt." Until now. When I followed up with her a few weeks later, she told me she'd been wearing more color, slowly, gently, and that even her granddaughter had noticed. "You look lit from within, Grandma," the little one said. You see, beige isn't bad, but if it makes you feel smaller, dimmer, or like you've melted into the wallpaper, maybe it's time to choose a shade that helps you arrive again. Camel doesn't try too hard. It just supports your light, your skin, your hair, your presence. Some colors erase us. Others remind us we're still here. And if you've ever felt beige has dulled your sparkle, wait until we step into the next shade. Because it's time to talk about pink. Not the soft, washed out one, but a pink that carries warmth, vibrancy, and a little courage. Which neutral in your closet feels more like hiding than highlighting? 5. Baby pink. Dusty rose. Soft, but not faded. You ever pick up a blouse that once made you feel lovely, only to look in the mirror and think, something's missing now? It's not the shape or the fit, it's the feeling. That soft baby pink sweater you wore to brunches, church, birthdays. It doesn't quite hold the glow it used to. And maybe, just maybe, it's not your skin that's changed. It's what the color gives, or doesn't. See, baby pink has this innocence we once adored. It was light, gentle, airy. But on skin that's lived, that's softened, and silvered, it can turn against us. It flattens our natural warmth, making our faces look washed out. That soft pink you thought was sweet can leave you looking tired, or worse, like you're fading from your own reflection. Now dusty rose. That's a different story. It still carries softness, but with depth. A pink that knows you've lived a few decades and still have more to offer. It brings warmth back to your cheeks. It reflects light, but gently. And most importantly, it respects the richness in your presence. Let me tell you about Anita. She's 66, a former music teacher in Ohio. Keeps her piano in the same spot it's been for 40 years, right by the bay window. Anita always wore pastels. She thought they were polite, feminine. But one afternoon, after trying on a dusty rose blouse I'd sent her in the mail, she called me. "Margaret," she said, "my reflection didn't look tired. I looked peaceful, like me again. And the best part? She wore it to her book club, and someone asked if she'd just gotten back from a trip. That's what the right tone can do. Not change who you are, but bring forward what's already there. And I know this firsthand. I used to wear baby pink scarves all winter, but they dulled me. Made my lips look colorless, my eyes dimmer. When I swapped them for dusty rose, or even a hint of mauve, everything lifted. I didn't feel younger. I felt clearer, like my softness had definition again. A color shouldn't erase your glow. It should whisper it forward. And if you've been clinging to pastels because they once felt gentle, maybe it's time to trust that softness doesn't mean small. Next up, we'll talk about a shade of green that grounds and glows, and why so many women overlook its quiet strength. Which pink in your wardrobe do you feel most yourself in? 6. Icy blue, powdered indigo. Clarity, not coldness. Have you ever opened your closet on a gray morning, reached for that pale blue blouse, and thought, this used to brighten me. Why does it feel chilly now? Not in temperature, but in tone. Like it belongs to a version of you from a decade ago. One with fewer smile lines, maybe, but also less softness earned from the years. That's the tricky thing with icy blue. It can seem calm and clean, but on mature skin, it can turn cold, drawing out shadows under the eyes, flattening our warmth, making us appear distant even when we're right there in the room. It's not that the color is wrong. It just doesn't hold us gently anymore. Now, powdered indigo. That's a different kind of blue. It's not loud. It's not trendy. But it's steady. A shade that brings depth without harshness. A blue that doesn't freeze the skin. It carries it. Adds clarity, not coldness. Think of soft denim faded by love and time, or the sky right after dusk settles. That's the kind of blue that stays kind to your face. Let me tell you about Joanne. She's 71, lives in a small town near Lake Michigan, and still volunteers at her local library every Friday. For years, Joanne wore pale blue cardigans, sky blue, she'd call them, because she thought they made her look serene. But one day, after a friend gently asked if she was feeling okay, Joanne started wondering. I sent her a powdered indigo wrap blouse I found at a local boutique. And when she wore it to her granddaughter's piano recital, her sister whispered, "You look peaceful and strong." That one word, strong, meant everything. Because softness shouldn't mean invisibility. And honestly, I've felt the same. I used to wear icy blue when I wanted to look fresh, but it ended up making me feel small, washed out. The day I switched to indigo, something shifted. It was like I was wearing a version of myself that had both tenderness and truth. The right color doesn't cover you. It lets you be fully seen. If you've been choosing pale blue out of habit, maybe it's time to ask, does it still reflect who I am now? In our next color, we'll talk about the power of earthy tones and why one of the most overlooked shades might be the warmest embrace of all. Which blue feels more like you these days? Soft and clear, or icy and distant? 7. Flat gray, mocha taupe, grounded, not gone. There's a kind of morning where everything feels a little quieter than usual. The sun peeks through the curtains, but your energy doesn't quite follow. You go to the closet, not looking for sparkle, just something neutral, something soft. And so often, that ends up being gray. Not the gentle shimmer of silver or ash, but that flat, dull gray that seems to match the cloudy sky outside and the quiet you feel inside. It's familiar. It's safe. But it also does something subtle and not in a good way. Flat gray especially the cooler tones without depth, tends to drain us. It blends into pale skin, soft hair, and leaves nothing for the eye to land on. No warmth, no light, and for many women over 60, that becomes the quiet trap. We stop being seen. Not because we want to vanish, but because our colors are doing it for us. Now here's a simple, tender change that made a world of difference for me. Mocha taupe. Not a bold color, not even loud, but warm. It carries a touch of earth and softness, like the first sip of coffee on a chilly morning, or the worn spine of a favorite paperback. When you wear mocha taupe, it doesn't pull attention away from you. It gently returns it. It says, you're still grounded, and you're still glowing. Let me tell you about Ruth. She's 73, a retired postal worker from Boise. Lives alone now, in the house she once raised 3 boys in. Ruth told me she had a drawer full of gray sweatshirts. Easy to match, easy to ignore. One day, after hearing a tip on warm neutrals, she picked up a mocha taupe cardigan at Goodwill. Still had the tag on. She wore it to her watercolor group at the library. Nothing fancy underneath, just a cream top and her usual jeans. Her friend Joan looked up and said, "Ruth, you look warmer today." And Ruth laughed and told me later, "That's the first time someone's noticed me in months." I know that feeling. There were winters when I wore gray, not just out of habit, but out of a kind of emotional fog. Gray felt safe. But after a while, I realized it also made me disappear from myself. The first time I wore a warm taupe scarf, someone said I looked rested. I hadn't slept any better. I just stopped hiding. Wearing warmth isn't about standing out. It's about no longer blending in where you don't belong. So if flat gray has been your default, try wrapping yourself in mocha instead. You might be surprised how it changes, not just how others see you, but how you feel in your own skin. Now let's turn to a color that many women think is classic and easy, but can often feel cold and forgettable unless we know how to warm it up from the inside out. Have you ever worn something neutral, only to realize it matched the way you felt too well? Color doesn't age, but it can age us if we let it. Let's take a breath together. We've just walked through 7 colors. Not just shades on fabric, but moments of return. Return to softness. Return to light. Return to that quiet voice inside that says, I'm still here. You see these shifts, white to ivory, black to navy, gray to mocha. They aren't just wardrobe tweaks. They're gentle declarations of presence, of care, of remembering that even now how we wrap ourselves matters. And no, we don't need a closet full of new things. Often, what we need is already there, just waiting to be seen again in a warmer light. So tomorrow morning, when you reach for something to wear, pause. Don't choose the color that hides you. Choose the one that brings you back to yourself. Maybe it's a cardigan in camel or a scarf in dusty rose. Maybe it's that old blouse you haven't touched in years because you thought it belonged to a younger you. But what if she's not gone? What if she's just been waiting for a softer mirror? For me, it was a powdery indigo wrap I'd folded away after Tom passed. It reminded me too much of spring walks and soft evenings. But one quiet Tuesday, I put it on again. No makeup, just the wrap. And I swear I saw her again. The version of me that still smiles at the sky. And I thought, maybe colors don't fade. Maybe we do, when we stop letting them hold us. Color doesn't age, but it can age us if we let it. Or it can carry us gently back to ourselves. Now, I'd love to ask you something. What color used to be your dearest friend? One that made you feel alive,
lovely, seen, but somewhere along the way you stopped wearing it? Try it again. Just once. Let it wrap around you like an old friend. And if someone comes to mind, a sister, a neighbor, a dear friend who's been hiding a bit, send her this video. Maybe she's ready to come back to her colors too. And me? I'll be here. With the kettle on, that dusty rose scarf across my chair, and a mirror that never judges, only waits patiently for you to see yourself softly again.